Good morning, middle schoolers. I understand you're on an all-nighter, and I'm glad I get to be a little part of it here by sharing with you a little bit of my story. To begin with, why don't all of us take a deep breath together and breathe it out. That is something I always assumed I would be able to do with ease. I mean, breathing is kind of an important thing to do with life, but you don't think about it. At least I didn't. I didn't until a doctor told me that it would be getting harder and harder for me to breathe. And I was like, what? What happened? And he told me I had a disease called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. It's a disease of the lungs that, for an unknown reason, the air sacs in my lungs are filling up, or were filling up, with fluid, and it would continue to progress on up until my whole lungs were filled with this fluid, and I would be unable to breathe. I'm like, oh, what happened? And he's like, we will never know, but this will kill you. If not, well, there's only one solution for it. And that was that I see if I could qualify for a lung transplant and get a new set of lungs. This was 2.5 years ago that I sat in the doctor's office and heard these words, which, wow, you're never ready to hear that I had less than 3 years to live unless I got a lung transplant. But I approached it with, well, God has a plan for my life. That hasn't changed. And I want to do His plan for as long as possible. So I began a process of learning about lung transplant, seeing if I qualified. Through a series of appointments with doctors and specialists, I finally was approved to be put on the waiting list for a lung transplant. But they told me I was not bad enough yet, that I had to get worse. My breathing was bad, but in comparison to all the different people throughout the world that have this disease, I was not bad enough. So many of you saw me walking around church at Charlotte with an oxygen provider on my hip, a pack that I slung over my shoulder, and it would provide me with extra oxygen as I was getting worse, but I needed more oxygen to walk around and couldn't walk. That ramp going up through the hallway, the preschool hallway, wow, that was getting me. I had to stop and rest to walk up that ramp. And I remember thinking, man, how much worse do I have to get? Well, the backpack finally wasn't enough, and so many of you saw me wheeling an oxygen tank. That was a hassle. You know, this cord running to the tank. I called it O2D2. Some of you helped me name it. And for the oxygen delivery system that I depended upon, and that I wouldn't be able to walk. I would just have to sit at home on oxygen, but that allowed me to get out and about. So I remember thinking, wow, how much longer is this going to have to continue? Well, on May of this year, while some of you were, you sixth graders would have been at kids camp. So you were in 5th grade this last May, you would have been at kids camp on the weekend that I got a call and they said, we have lungs for you. This is in Cleveland. The hospital I'm dealing with is Cleveland Clinic, and I remember them telling me there'll be a plane flying down to get you in several hours. Get packed, and we'll see you down up here. Wow, I can remember the excitement and the nervousness that I felt, but this was all part of God's plan. I knew it when the doctor had told me that that was my only chance, that this disease would take my life unless I had a lung transplant. And I remembered how I could have a peace. In fact, I did have a peace. Thinking, okay, here we go. They prepped me for surgery. I went through a 9-10 hour surgery. And came out of it several days later. I woke up and had a new set of lungs in me. Wow. I mean, it wasn't painful, but I can remember not needing oxygen, extra oxygen running up my nose to breathe. It was an incredible feeling. A thankful feeling. A humbling feeling that I had this second chance, because not everybody gets a lung transplant who wants one. And it was a process of waiting patiently while I got worse, trusting that I wouldn't get so bad that I died before I had my lung transplant. I remember how thankful I was. Thankful for a donor who had to die, and I won't know pretty much. I will never know who they are. I'll be able to write them a letter to their family thanking them, but that isn't until several months from now that they won't even deliver a letter to them. But I'm really indebted to them because their loved one donated their lungs that I could have them upon their death. And I don't know how they died, and we'll probably never know. But I remember thankful, and so I wanted to take care of myself anew. I wanted to be as healthy as possible. About a week later, and I was getting better in the hospital, in ICU. They're watching me. Nurses are caring for me. They're poking me with things and wow, taking pills. And I'm finding out what my normal routine is going to be like. And they were getting ready to transport me to a room that was not intensive care. And they had to pull out a needle out of my arm, and oxygen got up, a bubble of oxygen got into my arm and went to my brain, and I had a stroke. Well, I was blacked out. I remember hearing my wife and a doctor yelling in my ear, Mr. Cox, Tim, wake up. And that was for several seconds, and then everything went black. 4 days later, I woke up. My wife told me I had a stroke, that I was paralyzed on my right side. At that time, I could move my thumb 1/4 of an inch, and that was all. I couldn't move my arm. I couldn't move my fingers. I couldn't move my right leg, but my right side was paralyzed. They told me I would, it'd take a while, but I would be able to get better. And I remember thinking, wow, this is not what I had planned. I had planned being, I knew for several months, but after 3 months, usually you're back home and recovering back home. Well, that was not going to be my case. I was going to need rehab on my arm and fingers, and I'm still in rehab, but as you can see, I can move and I'm so much better. I have got to get better even before I get home, but it was a process of understanding. I knew that I had to trust God, but this was going to be different. This was going to be a different level. And in fact, I learned that, well, He cares for me. So much so that you would think this stroke was bad news. And I would never wish for anybody to have a stroke. But I found out that because of the stroke, that they found out that there was something going on with my original lung transplant, that my lungs were separating right up here, and I would have had lung failure somewhere down the road, probably within a week or two from when I had the stroke. But they found out that because they did an MRI on my brain and my body to find out why I had the stroke. They found out the air bubble in my brain, and they just checked my whole body, and they found this separation that was occurring. It was tiny separation that would eventually get bigger, but they caught it and healed it in my lungs, or else I would have died if they had not found that. So when I found that out, and I learned that the stroke happened, God allowed the stroke to save my life, well, that changed my feelings about the bad news of a stroke. It actually was good news. God used it to lovingly extend my life and as part of His care plan for me. You know what? Through all this, God can be trusted with your life, with my life. He has a plan, and He is working it out if we will let Him. We don't know what's best. I wouldn't have planned to have this lung disease if I could have chosen. I wouldn't have planned to have a stroke if I could have chosen. But now looking back, wow, I have learned so much and grown so much and found out that God is so good and loves me so much that I can trust Him. I really was not afraid throughout this because I knew He had a plan. I knew He cares for me more than anybody else, and I can trust Him. That is the case for you. I hope you know that. I hope you find out that. I hope you feel that. Because it is the greatest feeling in the world to know that He loves me no matter what. That He has a plan no matter what. What we think is good or bad and has happened to us, whether it's friends who treat us poorly or a bad illness that we've been told that we have, God can be trusted. He loves you. You've got a long life ahead of you, we think. what happens, God absolutely wants what's best for you. And we don't know what that is, but we can trust him. And I just have learned afresh that reality, and it has caused me to want to live for him. It's caused me thankful for the life that he gave me by his death. He died for me that I might have life. And I'm reminded that someone has died for me a second time. They didn't know my name. They just decided when they died that they were going to donate their lungs so that someone else could live. Wow. All I can say is I'm humbled at the graciousness of God and the love that he has for me, and I know that's the same for you. I love you, and I look forward to being back in Charlotte. Hope you have a great rest of the evening, morning. But I hope you most of all realize the fact that God loves you and has an awesome plan for your life, that you can trust him no matter what happens. Thank you.